Hey everyone, Joeypals here, and guess who finally has a project ready after a long period of teasing? No, it's not the team behind Kingdom Hearts 3. It's me. Today we're going to be tackling a long-promised topic, Fire Emblem Revelations, and how I'd go about improving the game. Fire Emblem Revelations is the overall 4th Fire Emblem game that I have played to completion, which is now joined by Sacred Stones, Shadows of Valentia, Path of Radiance, and Genealogy of a Holy War. Revelations, as flawed as it is a Fire Emblem game that I had plenty of fun with. You don't sink over 280 hours into something you hate after all. Pit would definitely know. Again, there are plenty of flaws in the game that I would like to address in my own way, rewriting the entire story from the ground up. Some of the concepts may stick around, but for the most part this is me taking what's there and rewriting it. I want to stress now that this won't be a general topic video where I discuss concepts that need to be improved, a la Blazing Knight in his videos on how to improve Fire Emblem Birthright and Awakening, which you should totally check out with this little eye pop-up over here, but instead rewriting the entire story from start to finish. Grab something to snack on and enjoy yourself. We're gonna be here a while. Before we begin with the chapters, I should probably know a few mechanics that have been updated. Let's start with supports. In this version of Revelations, Scarlet is able to support with Ryoma, Reina can support with Orochi, Flora can support with both Felicia and Jacob, and Shura can support with Niles. Speaking of Niles, gay marriage has been expanded a bit to give you 2 options per gender as to give a player at least some choice. Revelations now has a gay character and a bisexual character, with the gay character being able to marry both the bisexual character and the avatar, while the bisexual character still has their usual options, plus the gay character and the avatar. These characters will be displayed on screen now. You'll notice a new character in these images, Kain. Who might be Kain, you're asking? Kain is one of the new children in my game, being the son of Elise. All the princesses now have their own children. Starting with Kain, he's very closed off into himself, pouring most of his efforts into his books, being very much like Leo, but with a colder edge. He has a love-hate relationship with Shiro, secretly liking him. Kain starts as a dark mage. Next, there's Wynn, Camilla's son, and bringing plenty of fan service with him. He's a Wyvern Knight that's shirtless and loves flexing his muscles all over the place. He also likes hanging out with Shiro and loves scaring the absolute shit out of Hanoka. Who might be Hanoka, you're wondering? Hanoka, despite how it sounds, is Sakura's daughter. Just like Sakura, Hanoka is very shy, though this is mostly due to a lack of confidence in her own skills. She loves playing the piano and has a large obsession with flowers. She starts off as a shrine maiden. Finally, there's Hinoka, who is named Sora. Sora is basically the exact opposite of Hinoka, being very flighty, ditzy, and carefree. She starts off as a Pegasus Knight and has taken a particular interest in Valoria, meeting her on one of her flying trips. The princesses, which are Camilla, Hinoka, Elise, and Sakura, also get legendary weapons of their own, but we'll cross that bridge soon enough. Finally, Asugi, Kaeldori, and Rajat have all been redesigned and renamed. Asugi is now named Hidaki, Kaeldori is now named Hotaru, and Rajat is now named Tsukiko. All the original artwork has been done by all sorts of artists on the Fire Emblem Amino, and most of the original supports, which will be getting their own videos, have been done by Defog Gap, also from the Fire Emblem Amino. Now, with all that out of the way, we have some story to tackle. Time to tackle Revelations in a brand new light. Let's start at the beginning. The Prologue, Ties That Bind. In this chapter, you learn the mechanics of the game and get a massive foreshadowing of Chapter 6. For this chapter, I wouldn't really change anything for Revelations, but there is something I would change for Birthright and Conquest. As you can see here in the bottom left corner, there are a whole bunch of characters you can recruit in Conquest and Birthright, including Arthur, Effie, Baruka, Niles, Keaton, Perry, Rinka, and more. While some of the characters make sense, characters like Keaton and Benny, who aren't retainers, have no business being on the battlefield. What I would do for Birthright and Conquest is make the enemies in the bottom left generic enemies, as to mask the identities of characters you haven't met yet, to preserve the excitement of, ooh, new characters. Otherwise, this chapter is fine, and I wouldn't really change much. Moving into Chapter 1, we have Nor. In Nor, you have a one-on-one battle with Xander, being another mechanics learning chapter with a healing tile in place thanks to the Dragon Vein. This chapter is a pretty boring chapter that'll be over in a blink of an eye, so I'd spruce it up by giving it a bigger meaning than, oh, this is what a Dragon Vein is, and this is what a healing tile does. As we know, Xander's mother is dead somewhere. In his dialogue, we could explain that the reason why he trains as hard as he fights is to, quote, make sure nothing like what happened to his mother happens to anyone else in his family. Enough to raise eyebrows and keep you interested in the story coming up. It'd just be foreshadowing, but important foreshadowing. Next up is Chapter 2, Gift of Gainlari. In this chapter, you are tasked with executing 6 prisoners that Garen rounded up, including Kaze and Rinka. This is another basic chapter, so I wouldn't change much, but to counterpoint with what Xander said, if Korin battles Kaze or Rinka, they can both bring up dialogue about Garen's atrocities against Hoshido, leaving a very strong sense of moral gray. Who's right and who's wrong? Who's good and who's bad? Just with a minor tweak of dialogue, you can make this chapter a much bigger chapter than the application for Dragon Veins that it is. Then there's Chapter 3, Journey Begins, where Garen sends Korin to possibly die taking over a border fortress, and ensuring combat ensues by having Hans kill a Hoshidan before the chapter begins. This is actually one of the chapters done right in my opinion, making things clear that Hoshido and Nor are at very high odds with each other without giving anything away. If you make the edits in Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, the tension here becomes much more intense, and thus would be retroactively improved by those before it. Chapter 4, Hoshido. Very creative title, I know. Focuses on Sakura and Hinoka not being able to escape from some faceless because Sakura sprained her ankle. Okay, so this one we're completely rewriting because knowing mountains or not, Sakura not being able to leave because she sprained her ankle when Hinoka has a Pegasus is completely and utterly stupid. We just need to change the injury from Sakura's leg to a Pegasus leg for things to make much more sense. Is it sad for Pegasus? Yeah, but it's also realistic. This will allow Hinoka to perform in the Spear Masterclass, which for her is basically an unmounted Pegasus Knight because yes, in my rewrite, unmounting and remounting your steed exists, like in Thracia 776. Hinoka's butt isn't super glued to that Pegasus, so she should be fine. If you set up a point of conflict to be the two being unable to escape due to Hinoka's Pegasus being injured and still leave Hinoka to defend Sakura while you race towards her, you will at least have a sensible, if not silly, introduction to 2 minor princesses in the original story. More on those 2 later though. Next up we have Mother, Chapter 5 and better known as Anime Cliché 726. In this chapter, Makoto dies and, for some reason, because you turn into a dragon over rage of losing your mother, you're somehow able to see the truth about Nor. However, who's to say Hoshido is all that pretty? Beauty doesn't exist without blood in the shadows, so in my version of Revelations, a cutscene would play showing a tragic story that would tie so many things together, and would also be played in Conquest instead of the Garen's an asshole cutscene. In this cutscene, you'll see a blonde lady and man eating dinner when a sword wielder slams through the door and towards the woman. Without a moment's thought, the man picks up the sword behind him and slams it into the man's chest before he can reach his wife, a son peeking his head out and hugging his mom and dad after the attack. Some time passes and the woman is doing business in Hoshido as they have plenty of natural goods. The man decides to visit the woman, but is forbidden entrance due to Makoto's magical barrier, which prevents anyone who has done anything she has deemed wrong from entering the kingdom, regardless of circumstance. He still tries to force his way in, at which point Hoshidan archers, led by a very young Takumi, take out the man. The wife is later taken to a secret chamber in the capital under the guise of business and is killed off, with her body later being dragged back to Nor. With both cutscenes playing in Revelations, Korin needs to choose a side in Chapter 6, and because of the atrocities in both kingdoms and the fact that it's Revelations, Korn sides with no one, then leaving the map quickly with only Azora and Felicia or Jacob in tow, Silas following behind after getting a word from Nor. With Korn and his small band of miscreants running away, they eventually arrive at the bottomless canyon in Chapter 7, where, just like in the original storyline, Azora tries to convince the group to jump down the hole, where, as we know, Gunter fell after Hans backstabbed the group. In the original line, Korn and the gang eventually agree because they trust Azora, but in this line, Korn does not trust Azora completely yet, and therefore does not jump into the canyon. While Korn tries coming up with a plan of escape that doesn't involve everyone swan dining off a rickety bridge, one of the royals catches up to Korn, Takumi. Despite being cold and icy towards Korn earlier, he actually cared about Korn, but did not want to show weakness, and therefore is pretty pissed off after Korn left everyone. Before Korn can explain, Takumi leads an assault on the group with Oboro, Hinata, and a group of soldiers in tow. At the end of a battle, Takumi falls into the bottomless canyon, and if you land the finishing blow with either Korn or Azora, your team will also fall into the bottomless canyon. Oboro, Hinata, also in tow. This will unlock a bonus chapter, 7X. If you land the finishing blow with anyone else, only Takumi will fall into the canyon. Oboro will be devastated, and Hinata will become absolutely furious, neither joining Korn until much, much later. In what I dub 7X, Takumi, Korn, and everyone else so far is lying at the bottom of a bottomless canyon. While Takumi does try to kill Korn upon becoming conscious again, Azora stops him from attacking with a quick whack behind the head with her lance. Once Takumi comes to and he's calm, Azora begins to explain the atrocities of Anankos from long ago, and what Vala actually was, including the curse. Her memories aren't as clear as they were in the Nintendo version, but the gist is still there. After listening to Azora, Takumi is still pissy with Korn, but decides to fight for Azora, with Oboro and Hinata taking up their arms alongside their lord. Before they could do much though, a swarm of faceless, Valite copies of basic army units and a few classic monsters, Wights, Moguls, and Bales, descend upon the group. The group eventually takes down the monsters and finishes combat with a Valite copy of Takumi being the final enemy. And after Azora reveals how she left Vala in the first place, and re-stresses how the group cannot mention this place, the game progresses into Chapter 8. Upon reaching the surface in Chapter 8, the group immediately agrees to go somewhere neutral so they can discuss everything safely. The place where the group goes depends on whether or not you played 7X. If you played 7X, Takumi will remember Azana for his bizarre hair and personality, and the group will travel to Izumo to plan out their course of action. If you do not play 7X, Azora will remember the dance hall of Nestra, and the group will go there. Regardless of where you go, Zola will be waiting for you, with Azana being dead if you recruited Takumi, and Layla being dead if you haven't. During this chapter, you'll notice something quite different about Zola, being much more like Iago in nature, but much, much darker and sinister. Eventually, in both maps, where your task is to seize the throne, aka where Zola is controlling the Norian soldiers, you will be given a choice whether or not you wish to kill Zola. If you kill Zola, it becomes harder to recruit the softer royals, Sakura and Elise, later down the line, while gaining information now that Zola was controlled by, quote, the evil one of that alternate world. If you choose not to kill Zola, the more duty-bound royals, Ryoma and Xander, will be harder to recruit later, while Zola makes a quick getaway back to Garen's chambers. Whichever decision you make, Azora will use the behavior Zola exhibited to help determine who's really them and who's really not, down the line. In Chapter 9, the group will make their way towards either Shev or Fort Jinya. Shev if you've recruited Takumi by this point, and Fort Jinya if you haven't. In the Shev portion, the Shavoi are sparking a rebellion with Ryoma and Scarlet leading the way against Hans's and Iago's efforts, while Fort Jinya is being attacked by Camilla and her retainers with Sakura inside, Camilla attacking purely under Garen's orders. Focusing first on the Shev portion, Kaze will join the team automatically after realizing Kagero and Saizo are in danger but unreachable. Also, should the player had not chosen to kill Zola, in order to recruit Ryoma on this path, Ryoma, Kagero, Saizo, and Scarlet all must live. If a player chose to kill Zola, Ryoma will be positioned closer to Korin, and all the player needs to do is talk to Ryoma with Korin, Azora, or Takumi. If you are in the chef portion at this part of the game, Ryoma and Scarlet will be classed appropriately. In order to clear this map, the player must seize 3 points on a much larger map, with one being controlled by a Valite copy of Ryoma, while the other 2 points are held down by Iago and Hans. Players will need to tread carefully, as Iago's section has firewalling and makes it easy for him to attack the player in safety, while Hans and Ryoma will be guarded by both archers and Guili. Once the player clears the chapter, appropriate dialogue depending on if full recruitment was successful or not will come up, followed by Azora adding additional pressure to bring everyone together before things completely fall apart. Moving over to the Fort Jinya portion, Rinka will be the one to automatically join, realizing she needs help even after taking a few enemies down. In this much larger Fort Jinya, the same objective stands: seize the 3 points. Although this time your enemies are almost all monsters, including the 3 bosses, which are an Entombed, a Faceless, and a Death Goyle, with additional enemies consisting of Camilla, her retainers, Gorgons, Revenants, Gargoyles. In the back of the main area will be Hana, Tsubaki, and Sakura, all 3 of which you can recruit differently depending on if you killed Zola or not. If you killed Zola, the only way you can recruit all 3 units is if Sakura is at full health by chapter's end. If you did not kill Zola, all you need to do is talk to Sakura with Azora because, let's be honest, Sakura was very little when Korin was taken. There's no reason why she should know him that well. As far as Camilla and her retainers go, you can recruit Camilla and simultaneously the rest after talking to Camilla on turns after she kills an enemy. She won't be that strong, but strong enough to take down a few before going down herself, so caution should be used. Considering Camilla and Sakura's group are in different sections of the map, you will need to strategize carefully in order to gain all 4 units. Also of note is that new weapons will be in both Sakura's and Camilla's arsenal. Sakura will be holding a scroll named Terusupaku, a scroll she cannot use until she promotes, but will heal surrounding allies by 20% after use, whilst lowering the resistance of enemies within free spaces by 4, as well as lowering their movement to 1. Meanwhile, Camilla will be holding an axe named Creamhild, a mighty axe that will never double but will do plus 6 damage upon initiating the attack, and will have a built-in Luna effect. After completing the Fort Jinya chapter as well as the Nestor chapter, the group will make their way to the Ice Tribe in search of knowledge of Garen's past, as well as pasts of both Nor and Hoshido. After making their way to the Ice Tribe in Chapter 10, the group spends some time reading books about the rule of King Garen before Xander was born. They learned that the kingdom was almost as prosperous as Hoshido, sporting many fairs and festivals during the holiday season. Garen's behavior soon changed after marrying his first wife, Katarina, becoming the cruel, vindictive father figure he is known for being today. While the cause of his change for attitude is unknown at the time, it is known that Katarina died via suicide, which is odd considering how light and happy she was. The storybook story would be fully animated. The storybook is brought in by the maid you don't have and Flora, filling you in that they were fired and barely escaped death by Xander's sword. Before they could get too comfy though, the much larger ice village is being attacked by hordes of monsters led by Hans, mostly Malduin, Cyclops, Moth Dukes, and enemy-exclusive necromancers from Nor that are able to make phantoms every 4 turns after the first enemy falls. In order to beat the map, the team needs to defeat every enemy on the map, getting bonus rewards for every castle of the Ice Tribes that stays defended. Joining you at the onset are both Flora and the other maid you do not have, and positioned on the map is either Elise and her retainers alongside Benny and Keaton to try to defend the villagers despite Garen's wishes, or Takumi and his retainers alongside Orochi and Reina on a diplomatic visit to the Ice Tribe, depending on if you played 7X or not. If Elise is on the map, difficulty of recruitment for all 5 characters will depend on whether or not you killed Zola. If you killed Zola, you will need to keep Elise, Arthur, and Effie at least 50% by the end of the map. If you do not kill Zola, all you need to do is talk to Elise with Korn or Silas. Elise will also be carrying a tome named Blute, a tome that allows Elise to heal all of her allies by 10% if she initiates an attack, and 20% if that attack kills an enemy. Admittedly, this tome is a further stretch from reality because the poem Venorian weapons are based on, I'm gonna butcher this name, I swear, Nibelungenlied, does not have a character anywhere close to what Elise is like. Or a lot of women in general, for that matter. If Takumi is on the map, Korn will need to knock Takumi to 7 HP or less, then have Korn talk to him, then have Sakura talk to him. Upon completing this, Oboro, Hinata, Orochi, and Reina will all join the team. The map overall is difficult if you're trying to get all the items and characters, but otherwise it's pretty simple, and is a great grinding exercise for your sword units and shuriken users. Specifically Korn, Hinata, Kaze, Silas, and Kagero. Upon completing the map, you will be given the option to kill Hans. Should you kill Hans, your team will travel to the Flame Tribe or Mount Geru, depending on if you got Rinka or Keaton respectively, based on their persuasion. Killing Hans will reveal that he was acting under his own malice, but an orb of dark matter will be left in his pocket with Yago's name etched on it. Should you not kill Hans, Hans will run back to Garen, where he, alongside Zola, will be swiftly executed and absorbed by Garen for energy. In this circumstance, the group will travel to the Great Wall of Susano, should you not have recruited Elise, or to the port town of Daya, should you have recruited Elise. Just for record-keeping sake, we now have 4 pathways. All these pathways will merge after Chapter 12, but for now, here's all that. I hope you guys took notes of the changes that happened in the last chapter, because this is where things start getting messy. In Chapter 11, the group will make its way either to the Flame Tribe, Mount Geru, the Great Wall of Susano, or the port town of Daya, depending on the above circumstances. In the Flame Tribe and Mount Geru sections, you will be following claims that someone with a strange aura has been attacking the area. After doing some exploring around the town area, you will find either a corrupted Hinoka, holding her signature lance Aqua Boruto, a water-based lance infused with lightning that has a built-in soul effect, +6 attack, and rally speed, alongside her retainers, Kaden and Hayato. Or Camilla with the help of her retainers, with the normal version of the other princess going after the corrupted variant alongside their retainers. Fighting alongside the corrupted versions are a whole bunch of faceless and risen of all kinds, leaving the player to tread pretty lightly. In order to recruit the corrupted princess, the player must have Azora sing to them. This is recommended to be done after recruiting the regular princess though, as by recruiting the corrupted version first, the only way you can recruit the regular princess is by having her talk to Korn or Elise, or Takumi depending on the princess, after she is below 10 HP, instead of just being able to talk to them with Korn, Elise/Takumi, or Azora. Once these chapters are completed, the corresponding princess will reveal that she hasn't had control of her body ever since Korn last saw her. Before losing control, she remembers a faint voice whispering in her ear, "The footless orphan, you must kill the orphan," and trying to fight it off. But eventually, this voice and overall spirit overtook her. Right after, the princess asks Azora how she knew that singing would cure it. And she responds, I don't know. I had a similar voice in my ear telling me to use my gift, but I didn't know it could also do this. Almost similar circumstances will occur at the Great Wall of Susano or the port town of Daya, except Elise and her retainers will join you at the beginning of both chapters after hearing about what went down in the Ice Tribe. In order to clear all 4 maps, you simply need to calm down the corrupted princess either by death or by Azora singing, as well as taking out every other enemy on the map aside from the retainers. As the ally princess will go after the corrupted princess, quick movement on the player's part is vital. Upon completion of all 4 chapters, the characters will discover the dark matter once more. though there is more and it lasts a hell of a lot longer. Azora walks over to examine one of the bodies and is able to look at its face before the dark matter starts to consume her body. She's fortunately able to fight it off, but not without doing massive damage to her energy and soul. What Azora is able to recognize is that the matter felt slightly comfortable, almost like she was at home. While trying to figure out exactly what that meant, the group realizes that they need to make their way as quickly as possible out of their current situation. If a player was in the Kitsune Hamlet or the Great Wall of Susano, the group will make their way towards Igasato. If a player was at Mount Geru or the port town of Daya, the group will make their way towards the Woods of the Forlorn. Moving into Chapter 12, depending on the path, the group makes their way to either Igasato or Woods of the Forlorn, in the hunt to try to figure out exactly what the hell this dark matter is they keep running into. In Igasato, Kaze and Saizo reminisce about their childhood and the misadventures they got into while learning the ways of a ninja. Their reminiscing is cut short when they are surrounded by none other than Kotaro and his men. The map is mostly made out of trees and hidden traps, so one has to be careful. Halfway through the chapter, either Sakura or Ryoma, depending on who you haven't recruited yet, will show up with their retainers, with Saizo being recruited at the start of this chapter and Ryoma bringing Orochi and Reina regardless. The whole point of this chapter is tackling corruption, in more ways than one. As you take down more and more ninja, monsters will begin appearing on the map, mostly Moguls and Arch-Moguls, much to the delight of Kotaro, showing that something about him is truly off. If you finish Kotaro off with a royal, a cutscene will appear after the chapter where the royal will seem to be out of control for quite a while, uttering the words, "The barefoot child must be destroyed. The barefoot child must be buried. The barefoot child must be eviscerated," before Azora sings the royal back. Unless, of course, it's Azora, in which case she'll go out of control and will only stop after Korn smacks her once with their sword. After discussing it, the group will realize that they're fighting something completely unknown, with Azora pleading to follow her now that she's narrowed down what the options are. The group trusts her far more than earlier at this point, but only after Korn gives her their confidence. In Woods of Forlorn, needless to say, things are much darker. While the enemies are generally the same, so faceless galore, but Moguls are present as well since they fit the atmosphere, there is one major difference. Leo is nowhere to be seen. Instead, Sakura or Ryoma are there with some, let's call them cosmetic changes, depending on who you haven't recruited yet. While Ryoma is simply with torn clothing, Sakura dons a black robe, black hair, and a singular blonde streak through her hair. Both trigger a cutscene. When you fight Ryoma, he says, "We geared our lives towards finding you. When we find you, you run. Fight me, coward." When you fight Sakura, she says, "My entire life I was told how special you were. How great you were." Ready to see someone besides yourself? Both maps require that you have Azora sing to the royal before you kill every monster in order to recruit them. Their retainers, as well as Orochi and Reina, or Rinka, will be recruited at the start of a map if you do not have them, as they fear for the royals' safety. After the chapter, Kotaro, Sakura, or Ryoma, depending on which version of Chapter 12 you played, will be completely incapacitated. But Hinoka comes up with a great idea. She remembers that Lady Makoto once told her that the throne in Hoshido has the power to reveal the truth about whoever sits on the throne. So the group cooks up a plan to take Kotaro, Sakura, or Ryoma to the throne and set them down on it to figure out exactly what is going on. With that, everyone makes their way to Castle Shirasagi to get down to the bottom of this. In Chapter 13, the group makes its way to the throne room of Castle Shirasagi and goes to place Kotaro/Sakura/Ryoma on the throne. As they're about to place them on the throne, a horde of enemies of all varieties comes in, going from faceless to Valak copies of the team, so far to Moth Dukes, to Entombed, to Death Goyles. To make matters worse, these enemies are able to produce a fog of war situation, leaving you completely in the dark. In order to win the map, you must defend Kotaro/Sakura/Ryoma for 12 turns, or defeat the boss. Don't worry, the boss will be 5 steps away from the one you're trying to defend at the end of turn 10. Exciting, right? Keep in mind, Fates doesn't have any torch staves or anything along those lines, so you need to be really careful as to where you step. The boss is someone special, to say the least. It's none other than a Valite copy of King Sumeragi. This version of the king is very spiteful and angry, and is paired up with an equally spiteful Queen Makoto, who serves as a second boss. These versions are very different, but give one key insight before the big reveal at the end of this chapter. They allude to a certain being the one who consumed their souls, but don't go any further than that. Upon placing Kotaro/Sakura/Ryoma on the throne, they start recounting the voice that's been in their head. Your anger, it said. You must consume it. You must kill the footless child. And the girl with the singing voice. Only then will you be happy. Join me in the kingdom of Vala. After hearing the last line, slightly altered of course when spoken as to avoid the curse, Azora connects that it must be none other than a Nankos who's corrupting everyone, based on what she knows from when she was little and in letters that Arete left her. With their goals in mind, Hinoka, Camilla, Takumi, and Elise now realize that they will need more power before they can even go down to, quote, the Forbidden Kingdom. After some convincing, Ryoma and Takumi are on board and decide to lead the charge towards Windmire. But first, they must cross the sea. For Chapter 14, the group needs to cross the sea in order to reach their target of Windmire. Thanks to the treasuries of both Hoshido and Nora being fully accessible, the group has no issues buying the boat and supplies it needs to make it across. About halfway along their journey, the ship is hit by a cannonball, by a thief ship captained by none other than Shora. Recognizing your eyes, Shora relapses onto some old memories, and comes to the conclusion that the only way that he can escape those memories is by drowning you. So, he fires a couple more cannonballs and creates an escape situation. At the end of turn 10 on the map, the boat you were originally on will be completely underwater, becoming more and more submerged per turn. If any of your allies are still on the boat come turn 10, those allies will be dead, even in casual mode. From there, you will need to rout the enemy, and put allies into certain spots on the other ship, corresponding with the spots you started on. In order to recruit Shora, you need to land the final hit on Shora with anyone besides Korin. If you land the final hit with Korin, you'll be given a pseudo-choice to kill him or not, to which he'll jump ship and drown despite your choice. Admittedly, this is just a filler chapter and a way to recruit Shora, but there was no other way to really work him in besides that, so anyway, let's continue off the rest of the story with Chapter 15. After landing in Nora and making their passage, the group makes their way into Windmire with the help of Camilla and Elise. The journey there is awfully quiet, and the group starts getting more and more anxious. Once they reach the town square, they encounter Leo, his retainers, and Nyx, who ensure a sword-ready Ryoma that he is not there to fight them, rather that Leo left the castle to try to clear his head and figure out everything that's going on with Garen. Leo knows there's something different about Garen. He's just not exactly sure what. Takumi and Azora start to explain things to him when they get ambushed by Iago, or rather, Iago's illusion. Even though Iago isn't there in person, the magic cast is real, and thanks to Nankos, he's able to take momentary control of Takumi. Knowing she couldn't risk singing again so soon after the last time, Azora gets Leo to try to break the spell. The spell is at first too much for Leo, but after Nyx comes out of the shadows to assist Leo, the spell is broken and Takumi is back to being the pineapple head that he is. During this time, Iago and his illusion leave, but what is among them are a total 30 Gorgon eggs and 5 death goyles. In order to clear the map, you must kill off all 30 eggs and the 5 death goyles. While the eggs impose no immediate threat, players of Sacred Stones know the Gorgon Egg chapter could be one of the most frustrating chapters in the game should any of the eggs hatch. Players will need to act swiftly in order to ensure no one is harmed and take out the death goyles in an effective manner. Once the enemies are cleared, Leo reveals the underground passage that Elise showed him to leave the castle, taking them directly to Castle Cracker Barrel. In Chapter 16, the group makes their way to Castle Krakenberg to try to save Xander and take down Garen. This chapter is basically 3 chapters rolled into one, much like a last chapter with 2 endgames instead of 1. In Part 1, the group has to plow their way through hordes of faceless and escape within 17 turns to make it into the castle. Much like Chapter 21 of Conquest, except that Lilith doesn't die here and you're actually tested. If you do not make your way by the 17th turn, every unit on the field will die. This chapter is royal exclusive, meaning your units will be Korn, Azora, Ryoma, Hinoka, Takumi, Sakura, Camilla, Leo, and Elise. It is wise to move swiftly and get out of the room as swiftly as possible to avoid any possible casualties. After Part 1, the group moves into Part 2, which takes place in the main hall. In this chapter, Xander appears, but much to the distraught of everyone, Iago has him under strict control via illusion. Among Xander are 7 Gorgon eggs in every Norian enemy class, including the Necromancer seen all the way back in the Ice Tribe chapter. Who isn't under Iago's control are Charlotte and Xander's retainers Laszlo and Perry, all of whom were accompanying Xander but simply weren't able to ward off Iago. You recruit the 3 of them at the start of the chapter, and you'll definitely need most of them in order to recruit Xander. To recruit Xander, the player must have both his retainers, all 3 of his siblings, and Korn talk to Xander in order to sway Iago's influence. Xander will not go after his siblings, but will go after his retainers and Korn, so caution is advised. In order to clear the map, you must kill Iago's illusion. Since it isn't the real Iago, it won't be all that difficult to take him down, but due to how difficult it'll be to recruit Xander and the hordes of enemies that stand in your way while trying to do so, this chapter portion will be quite the testament. After you clear this portion, your team makes its way towards the throne room for Part 3. In Part 3, all you need to do is kill both Iago and Garen. In your way will be a bunch of enemies, mostly monsters save for a few necromancers. Making its first appearance in this game are the Draco zombies, 2 of which serve as a first gate boss. Once the Draco zombies are dead, the player will move into a second segmented section with Iago and a whole bunch of faceless, and, once cleared, will lead into a small room with only Garen. A cutscene will play where his skin peels right off and, instead of being a slime monster, Garen is a black dragon. And as scary as this dragon looks, it is nothing more but a mere construct by an Ankos. Garen can only be damaged by the royals, and any non-royal character will be instantly one-shot before they can move should you try to attack Garen with any of them. Once Garen goes down, the chapter is finally over. Xander recounts the tales of Garen's wrath while everyone else evacuates, and remarks about how he knew Garen wasn't the same man, but just couldn't pin it on what happened. Azora hints she has the answer, but tells the group that she cannot spill all the information here, and can only do so in, quote, the other kingdom. Xander demands answers, but Azora keeps repeating that she cannot discuss that information here. It takes the work of all 8 of the other royals to convince Xander to trust her. To which Xander replies, "If you betray my trust, I will strike you down faster than father struck down Arette." Not realizing that was Azora's mother, Azora runs off crying and Xander chases her down to comfort her. While the 2 are gone, Korn rallies everyone to gather their courage for the trip ahead. Realizing they need just a little bit more strength though, Korn leads the group to Notre Sagesse on the recommendation of Leo. In Chapter 17, the group arrives at Notre Sagesse and immediately approach the Elder that is the Rainbow Sage in disguise. The Rainbow Sage is a bit flustered by the group approaching him like that, but tells the group that if they wish to get stronger, they must beat the Sevenfold Sanctuary. In the Sanctuary, there are copies of every character recruited so far laying as enemies, with a copy of Corn standing as the final boss. All copies will be placed at level 10 and be promoted, with unpromoted units receiving one of their promotions randomly. In the room before the boss room, Mozu will be in her merchant class and holding one elixir at level 15. On the first turn, the camera will pan to her and she'll say, "Come on, Mozu. You could do this. They're just phantoms that smell like goats. We need to do this for the village. For Mama." While she's more than capable of holding her own, the group will need to make their way to Mozu as quickly as possible and not let her die. If Mozu is the last unit left to recruit, Corn will remark that he's happy that his quest to unite two warring nations was successful, but knows there's still work to be done. The final room will have copies of the 4 royal princes and a copy of Corn. Once all 5 of these enemies are defeated, the group will clear the map. Before the Rainbow Sage passes on, he will reveal to the group that he was waiting for someone strong enough to carry out his wish. He will then power up all the weapons, bringing Corn's Yato straight up to an Omega Yato, and upping the might of Ryoma's, Takami's, Hinoka's, Sakura's, Xander's, Leo's, Camilla's, and Elise's weapons by 4. Once that is done, the Rainbow Sage will look at Azora and say, "Listen, I know who you are, and I know who your mother is. I know who your true father is. I want you to listen to me. You saw it yourself with Garen. No one is truly as they seem. Your group, they're fighting for what's right, to save the world. Long ago, I created the weapons the men are holding now to help fight my brothers. The weapons your sisters hold? Those are Moro's. He sought to balance me out, but alas, we all harmed each other in the end. Sometimes you need to fight to create peace. But fighting too much can cause devastation, and not enough fighting can create chaos. If anyone can do it, it's you, kid. Now, listen to me one last time. You must go kill your uncle. I know it's gonna be hard, but you have to. For everyone. Go to Vala and kill Anenkos." Because the Rainbow Sage muttered the kingdom's name out loud and Anenkos' name to boot, the Rainbow Sage quickly evaporates and leaves Azora slightly devastated, but more determined than ever. After wiping away a few tears, Azora looks at the group and proclaims they need to make their way to the bottomless canyon and to forget about anything they may have heard about the changing skies, because that, in her words, is simply a dead old man's tale, which stands as a small jab at Gunter. At the start of Chapter 18, Azora and Corn lead the group to the bottomless canyon. After Azora prompts the group that they all need to jump in, a great majority of the group started freaking out, especially the likes of Sakura, Elise, and Mozu. After a couple lines of this, Ryoma speaks up and goes, "I have to admit, this is scary, but Azora clearly knows something. I know my sister. She wouldn't lead us to mass suicide. I must ask, what should we expect?" Azora responds, "The monsters, the corruption. We've all seen it so far, no matter where we come from. That torment will only amplify as we fall down that rabbit hole. I can only imagine how things have changed since I last visited. But this is the heart of the situation. If we wish to stop the chaos, we must go down there." Azora starts seeming hesitant as she has gained an inkling of what might happen to her, so Corn steps up to the plate. "Look, Silas has been down there, as has Takami, and all 3 of us are standing before you today. You will not die jumping into that hole. We need your confidence." After a bit more debate between a few groups, they decide to both believe Corn and Azora that everything will be fine. Korn and Azora look at each other and, with a quick nod, jump down into the hole together. The mountain dragons refuse to go down into the hole, leaving Camilla, Elise, Leo, Xander, Hinoka, Silas, Reyna, Perry, Scarlet, and Baruka no choice but to leave their mounts on land, simply being unmounted and losing 50% of their defense in Vala. Once the group plummets down the hole and fuss into Vala, Azora tells the group about the letter her mother Arette wrote her and shared with Xander last chapter. In this letter, Arette details that Aninkos was a loving and caring man in her time, but his lust for power eventually overcame him. He started taking over neighboring countries with only Hoshido and Nor standing before his downfall. Aninkos' sorcerers were especially subject to his wrath, and eventually helped Aninkos transform into a dragon to spare their lives. After becoming a dragon and not having Dragonstone help support him, Aninkos spiraled out of control, leaving a great majority of the citizens of Vala no choice but to flee. While almost everyone died in this escape plan, two of the survivors were Makoto and Arette. Makoto being Aninkos' lover, and Arette being the wife of the king Aninkos killed to gain control of Vala. They both escaped with Azora and Korn, and her information stops there outside of noting that Aninkos was always weak to the charms of bravery and music. And that might be the key to taking him down. With Azora clearly shaking, a horde of monsters of all creeds come in. While most of the monsters are Death Goyles, Wheelie, Cyclops, and Archmogols, there are 2 Draco Zombies and 3 Stone Golem, marking the Golem's first appearance in this story. The goal of this map is simply to kill all the enemies, with both Draco Zombies being the bosses. With a bit of difficulty, the group is able to eventually clear through the map. With everyone panting heavily, a figure that Azora recognizes as Arette walks up to the group and offers them somewhere to stay for the night. Weary and lacking better judgment, the group agrees, only to the delight of Arette, marked with a sinister smile. Moving into Chapter 19, the screen is pitch black at first, with only wind chimes sounding. After a moment, Azora wakes up and tries to speak, but feels completely muffled. Korn wakes up next and barely notices the gag around her mouth. Prompting her to be quiet, Korn removes the gag and starts waking everyone else up. Damn, just when I was dusting off my books, Arette said from a nearby chair. Azora goes to speak again, but figures out she's unable to. What's wrong, sweetie? Cat got your tongue? Arette coyly answers. Look, I didn't want to see you again, truly. I didn't want to see any of your friends. Aninkos is my only love left of his life. And yet, you're all here for what I can assume is an assassination attempt. Pathetic. Looks like my friends and I will just have to kill you. May as well wake him up. Arette then leaves the room, with Saizo wondering if he can stab her in the back. Ryoma talks him down from it for Azora's sake, but notes the group needs to get ready for battle. Now. The map is a mix of an escape and fog of war map, as the goal is to escape, but the area is completely dark. There will be a chapter-exclusive torch mechanic available for staff users or tome users carrying fire, lighting up the nearby vicinity by 10 spaces on top of what the player can already see, and will diminish by 2 spaces every turn. The enemy consists of endless copies of Arette, King Sumeragi, Makoto, Izana, and King Garen, albeit with weak enough stats so that the team can handle them. On this map, though, there are 5 bosses, one of each character, killing the boss copy of Arette with Azora, boss copy of King Sumeragi with Ryoma, boss copy of Makoto with Korn, boss copy of Izana with Takumi, and boss copy of King Garen with Xander will trigger short but special conversations. Arette will tell Azora that she is thankful that she was the one who released her spirit, and notes to make sure to use her gift effectively. Sumeragi tells Ryoma that he's proud of his son for everything he accomplished, but he cannot afford to slack off now and prompts him to keep fighting. Makoto praises Korn for reunifying efforts and for honoring her death properly, pleading for Korn to continue doing what they think is right. Izana will be blunt with Takumi in saying that despite despising his attitude, he's proud of the man he's become and hopes he can continue being a fair diplomatic figure in the future, Garen will apologize for the awkward upbringing of Xander, and will admit that after Xander turned 7, King Garen stopped being himself due to giving in to a Nankos. He is proud of everything Xander has accomplished, but reminds Xander that sometimes doing what's right is more important than winning for your side. Once the chapter is cleared, the group is very clearly emotionally and physically exhausted, but knows they can't all afford to sleep at once. With Hinoka freaking out from fear and thus freaking everyone else out, Azora looks around her location and finds a map detailing where they are and where the castle is, quote, in case the heart was ever lost. With the location known, the group travels closer to the castle and sleeps in shifts, preparing for the biggest battle of their lives. In Chapter 20, the group makes their way to Gygus, the central castle of Vala, to take down a Nankos once and for all. Before they can actually walk into the castle, Lilith appears to the surprise of everyone from the Norian royal family, Azora, and Korn. She warns the group that a Nankos has gone completely out of control since she left so many years ago, recounting back then that a Nankos, her father, almost killed her and doubts he would have any issues doing it this time. Azora and Korn hold strong though, noting that they need to take a Nankos down now if they wish to see tomorrow. Lilith reluctantly agrees, hoping to support them to the end. This reunion is cut awkwardly short though when Kadros pops up from behind, ramming into Lilith with a lance and killing her instantly. Well, wasn't that fun? Kadros says in a mocking manner. So, we have a whole crew here. Well, this should be exciting. You want to remove what's left of a Nankos? Destabilize a world you don't even know? You're gonna have to get through me first, or my name isn't Kadros. You're the first? Yes, Azora, the first king of Vala and your blood relative. Don't expect me to go easy on you, though. Azora nods and spins her lance in front of her before holding it in a defensive position, shouting, "Then let's go!" In order to clear the map, you simply need to kill Kadros among a horde of Valite soldiers. These soldiers are all promoted in level 18, meaning you'll need to be on your guard when taking on all these enemies. When the chapter ends, Kadros simply vanishes and a cackling is heard. So, you're the group trying to kill me. I will admit, I am pretty impressed you killed Kadros. Ah well, just a copy whipped up especially just for you. Azora responds, "Wait, you did what?" And Nankos repeats himself, saying, "Oh, just recreated a body. I took a bunch of souls, plopped them in a blender, and hit frappe. It's not that hard, really. My friend Hades filled me in on a recipe. Ah well. I lowered my final obstacles here, so I believe it's time to wipe you all out. Come on, let's play." The castle the group is in begins to fall apart. Unfortunately, everyone rushes outside of the castle just in time. This is when the original final cutscene in Revelations plays, music and all. This cutscene leads directly into the endgame. In the endgame, the endgame plays quite similarly to the original, except with a few differences. First off, you'll notice that I didn't bring in a, quote, Korn died and then got brought back to life, end quote moment, because frankly, that whole moment is anime bullshit and this is Fire Emblem, not Soul Eater or Madoka Magica. That's because Korn dies. For real. And Azora, and Ryoma, and Nah, I'm just playing. What actually happens is the +4 boost given to the weapons for all the royals, besides Korn's weapon, because Vigato is something Nankos can't deal with, is removed. But as for Korn, he starts off with 1 HP health, which, mind you, is easily fixable, but that's still a scary situation to start off in. On top of that, every 3 turns, copies of one random character in your roster that you did not bring to the fight will spawn over 8 times, all carrying the same weapons and having the same levels and whatnot. Now, if you have a bunch of weak allies, that's great and it only becomes a minor inconvenience. However, because this map only has 10 spots, and all 10 are mandated to be the 10 royals, While most of the maps ask for anywhere between 12 to 16 units, you could very well be going up against 8 Silas or 8 Effie if luck is not in your favor. The same 4-stage process of fighting in Nankos applies, except with HPs shifted a little bit. The arms will have 50 HP, the head will have 70 HP, and the eye will have 80 HP. And after that, Nankos will appear in his human form. A bit of a 5th stage, if you will. This form will have a total 120 HP, and will be a sorcerer, carrying a Snake Spirit, Mjolnir, Dragon Spirit, Calamity Gate, and, curiously enough, Foron. Once you defeat this final form, Nankos will be sealed away, presumably not waking up for quite some time. Once everyone celebrates and what was originally the final cutscene plays, Chapter 20X will begin. In Chapter 20X, which is set 3 years after the endgame, you simply have to walk around as Corrin and talk to all the couples. For example, if you talk to Ryoma and he married Kagero, you will talk about Shiro. If any of the parents are unmarried, they will be matched up with anyone they can ask support with priority going to who they have the most support points with. For example, let's say Xander is unmarried and the remaining females are the Corrin Sexuals, Mozu, and Charlotte. Support points would then determine a wife for Xander between Mozu and Charlotte, since those are 2 females he can ask support with. Once you talk to all the couples, a new cutscene will play where Corrin is simply writing into a book, talking about the events of their adventure and their goals for the future, as well as hopes for their newly born child Kana. After finishing their writing, Corrin closes the book, shares a kiss with who they married, and stares at the sunset sky, ready for a new day. Everyone's ending story then plays, followed by the credits. When the credits are almost 75% over, a claw will slash into the credits and rip them away entirely, leading directly into Chapter 21. And you guys probably thought that Hades reference was a little bit random too. Nope, I like to give my references some nice, hearty context and meaning. In Chapter 21, the game goes for a soft reset and is set 14 years after Chapter 20X, meaning all the kids are at least in their teens, with the youngest being Kana at age 14 and Shiro being the oldest at age 20. Following Chapter 20X, Vala is brought to the surface and all 3 continents are connected by land. The chapter begins with cutscene in Vala, where Azora and her husband, as well as Corrin and his spouse, are raising their children peacefully. Everything is fine until Azora notices something dark in the sky that's growing very quickly. She rushes over to Corrin's house and pleads for Corrin to run out immediately. Of course, Corrin is an idiot, so he stays to fight whatever it might be, and has the children go into hiding beneath the homes. The dark, growing figure is none other than Nankos, looking very angry and violated. Corrin tries to defend against Nankos, but is killed in battle, as his allies are fragmented and nowhere to be seen, Azora falling quickly as well. Nankos then takes off for Nor and Hoshido to try to finish everyone else off. The cutscene then ends and returns the game to Kana and Shigure, Kana being scared out of her mind and Shigure being pissed the hell off. As they lay low beneath the house and things get quiet, they hear a couple figures shifting around upstairs and breaking things. The fight then begins, where Kana and Shigure need to defend against a total 6 Faceless, one of which holds 4 chest keys. To clear the chapter, the children must open the character-specific chests. Kana and Shigure will start off with a Daikon Radish and Broom, respectively, but once they open the chests, they'll gain the rest of their inventory. What's of particular note here is that Shigure is not a Pegasus Knight, but rather a new class, the Singer, to couple with his mother Songstress class. In the 2 chests Kana opens, they will find Viato as well as anything else in Corrin's spouse's inventory at the end of Chapter 20X, along with a note saying, "If you've opened these chests, it means I've been killed. Kana, I know this hurts, but you need to be strong for both of us. We love you. Please, just stay safe." Signed, Corrin. P.S. You are in charge of a convoy we built up for years. Use the wares effectively. Meanwhile, Shigore's chests holds the inventories of Azora's and her husband's items, as well as a letter urging Shigore to make use of his singing when the moment is right, as well as telling him to check on both Nor and Hoshido. Kana's and Shigore's potential siblings will have traveled there for nobility reasons. At the end of a chapter, you'll be given an option to follow either Kana or Shigore. If you wish to follow Kana, you'll play through their journey to Nor. If you wish to follow Shigore, you'll play through his journey to Hoshido. Both pathways will realign at Chapter 25. In Chapter 22, Kana or Shigore will make their way either to Mount Geru or the Kitsune Hamlet, depending on if you chose Kana or Shigore. At Mount Geru, Kana will notice the destroyed mountainside, with the many rock piles being where they clearly shouldn't be and a scorched earth serving as plenty of evidence. In the distance, Kana will hear someone sobbing very loudly. After some trekking, he finds Valoria in a ball sobbing, with Ignatius nearby to try to comfort her. Kana mistakes Ignatius as an enemy and strikes at his armor, which even with Beato does absolutely nothing. Valoria gets very irritated and almost attacks Kana out of retaliation for, quote, attacking the only person she has left. But Ignatius holds her back after recognizing the sword. The three then trade stories about everything that went down with them, and the three stories all sound eerily similar. The trio then decides to team up, with Valoria leading the way with her powerful beast stone already on hand. Before they can go far though, Valoria tells the two to get ready for battle because, as her nose correctly identifies, monsters are coming. These monsters are all Moth Dukes, and in order to clear the map, a player simply needs to defeat all the Moth Dukes. Once that's done, Kana will stress that they need to get to Nor so they can see if the rest of Apparence's allies are alright. To which Valoria and Ignatius happily assist with as, quote, they have nothing else left in this world anyway. Almost the exact same circumstances occur at the Kitsune Hamlet, except Shigore has Selkie and Rajat, who has been replaced by a similar character named Tsukiko, to deal with, and Shigore tries to lunge at Tsukiko instead of attacking with a weapon. If Azora married either Kaden or Hayato, Shigore and Selkie/Tsukiko will share a small conversation where they are happy to see the other one is still alive. Similar conversations will occur between Kana and either Valoria or Ignatius. Following the events of Mount Geru, Kana's group will head to Windmire, while Shigore's group will head to the Hoshido Grotto, the name I'm giving the unnamed location where you fight Hinoka in Fire Emblem Conquest. In Chapter 23, depending on pathway, the group will be starting in either Windmire or the Hoshido Grotto. While there's no evidence of any sort of motive yet, Kana's group and Shigore's group are both seeing the damage and devastation of Anankos' wrath. Destroyed buildings and scorched lands marking everywhere they go. While Windmire still looks roughly the same, just with destroyed buildings, the Hoshido Grotto has turned from a lush cherry blossom garden into a cesspool of hazardous materials, marked especially by a large pool of poison in the middle, and the once streaming, shimmering waters now being replaced by acidic waste. In Windmire, Kana's group is looking specifically for either Effie or Odin, two of Korn's friends that were spoken very highly of, but come with no such luck. Instead, they come across Ophelia sobbing profusely, hunched over her father's treasury. After relaying their stories, Kana, Ignatius, and Valoria all convince Ophelia to come with them to try to avenge her parents. Before Ophelia can leave though, she begs the group to help her find Percy, Soleil, and Nina, her childhood friends. The group agrees to help her, and the camera pans out to showcase Percy, Soleil, and Nina all at 3 different castle structures, with 2 chests and holding 2 chest keys. Before they start taking a leisurely walk to free them, 2 men walk onto the field, their names being Seno and Zara. While the majority of their conversation is nothing major, the main point they bring up is they need to, quote, obey the Alliance contract and kill the children. The two allow their men, which are all Norian units, to take the field and go to work as they walk off. To clear the map, you must defeat all the enemies and free Percy, Nina, and Soleil. Most of the enemies will be mercenaries, enemies that Ophelia should have absolutely no issues with clearing out, as well as the rest of your main squad. The two bosses on this map are a Cavalier and a Knight. Enemies Percy should be able to take on with some assistance from Ophelia. After all the enemies are gone and the children are freed, the children begin to converse and start coming to the conclusion that something is out to take out their parents. Valoria is the first to get dark, saying, "As we sit here now, Prince Ryoma is probably taking his last breath." Which gets everyone pretty worried concerning the OP powerhouse he is. Kana is the first to gather some courage following that line, saying that their mom/dad would not have wanted them to lay down and give up. After some rallying, Kana convinces the rest of the group to keep going, find the royal children at Castle Krakenberg, and then try to find Shigore's group. Shigore's group, meanwhile, has a similar dilemma, except there are no castles the children are trapped in, and instead many enemies are surrounding them instead. Mitama, Hisume, and two characters similar to Asugi and Keldori, named Hidaki and Hotaru, respectively, will be huddled up near the toxic pool recounting their misfortunes. Shigure, Selkie, and Tsukiko start conversing with the group and come to the same conclusion Kana's group came to at the end of their battle. As they go to leave for Castle Shirasagi, the group is ambushed by a group of Moguls, under the leadership of a man named Funk. The group simply needs to kill the Moguls, and once they do, they then proceed to Castle Shirasagi with a renewed determination to avenge their parents. If a sibling of either child is met in this chapter, a conversation akin to Chapter 22's sibling conversation will play out. In Chapter 24, the group will make their way to either Castle Krakenberg or Castle Shirasagi, depending on if you're following Kana or Shigure. In Castle Krakenberg, Kana, Valoria, Ignatius, Ophelia, Nina, Percy, and Soleil begin to survey the destroyed castle. While Soleil will notice the castle is refurbished from the days of her childhood, the progress is starkly contrasted by broken and collapsed pillars all over the place. Nina doubts the royal children would still be here, but to Nina's surprise, a man in a black coat and blonde hair walks down the jagged staircase with three following behind him. The man in the cloak is Kane, Elise's son that takes a massive cue from Leo's upbringing, but is very much his own man, and is a dark mage. Following him are Siegbert, Forrest, and Wynn. Camilla's son, who takes a massive amount of pride in his muscles, is a Wyvern Knight, and has a dragon tattoo on his chest. While the reunion between the retainer children and the royals is great, the four royal children warn the seven that came to be careful, as someone's been in the castle attacking them all day. As if on cue, Gazak appears out of the shadows with a group of fighters, telling them to take out the children for the glory of, quote, the Alliance. 2 words Kane writes down in the book he's carrying. To clear the chapter, you simply need to defeat all the enemies on the map, Gazak excluded, as he vacates the map right at the beginning of the story. The boss on the map, instead, is a fighter at level 11. As fighters all carry axes, Kana, Soleil, Kane, and Ophelia should have a field day, with Percy and Wynn getting a decent workout as well. The boss fighter will note something about a contract with, quote, the Silent One, while not mentioning anything else. Following the map, Kane will speculate heavily on the words the Alliance and the Silent One, trying to tie them together to what has happened with all of them so far. The children try to brainstorm the meaning, but come to the conclusion that they need to reconvene with the other group, and thus make their way back to Vala. Meanwhile, Shigure, Selkie, Tsukiko, Mitama, Isume, Hidaki, and Hotaru find a similar landscape within Castle Shirasaki, with all 4 royal children still being fine, but all the adults being dead, making the fears of both groups confirmed. Alongside Shiro and Karagi are Sora, Hinoka's daughter that's pretty damn ditzy, a Pegasus Knight and pretty much the opposite of Hinoka in personality, and Hanoka, Sakura's daughter and a diviner that's about as reserved as Sakura, but takes a liking to playing piano and to her garden of flowers. Fighting this group is Tarba, another man who mentions, quote, the Silent One and, quote, the Alliance, albeit a bit more loudly. Shiro shouts and demands answers, but Tarba simply shrugs, snaps, and summons a bunch of Oni savages to the field before walking off. Oni savages all being axe units. Shiro should have absolutely no issues flying through the map, with Tsukiko, Isume, and Hanoka doing some work as well. The boss of the map will simply repeat, quote, the Alliance and, quote, the Silent One phrases without giving anything more away. Between Funk and Tarba, as well as the two phrases, Shigore's group is very confused, and feels like trading notes will be best to figure out the situation. Thus, Shigore's group travels to Vala to try to figure everything out that's going on alongside Kana. In Chapter 25, both paths rejoin in Vala, with Kana and Shigore meeting each other around Azora's old home. The main difference between the paths is the allies on Kana's path, excluding Kana, will be at level 9. Kana will match Shigore in level. Kana and Shigore will start trading notes about what happened on their respective adventures, and ask everyone else to do the same. Silky and Valoria pair up, as do Percy and Hisame, Siegbert and Sora, Tsukiko and Ophelia, Nina and Mitama, Hidaki and Soleil, Otaru and Ignatius, Forrest and Hanoka, Win and Kuraki, and, much to Kane's chagrin, Kane and Shiro. While trading notes, everyone comes to the same conclusion that the figure in the sky is Anenkos, and this time he's got assistance. Before they can think about it for too long, a shadowy, flamed figure rides in front of the children, unnamed. He says to the children, "This is my last humane act in this realm. Leave now, or prepare to pay the price for all of your lives as your parents have before you. Do not try to resist. It will only lead to your death." After the children choose to resist the figure, said figure snaps his fingers and vanishes. The children are clearly very confused, but before long, answers come in the form of a temporary possession of Kana. Through Kana, a voice says the following: Your parents are all dead. Your parents are dead for messing with fate, messing with reason, messing with the one inevitable ending. Our intention was to get Anenkos to take you all out, but apparently hide-and-go-seek still runs in your veins. Mark my words, children. We already know where you are, so we can find you, and trust me, we will kill you. But I think it'll be fun to watch you struggle for a bit. When we truly meet, we will see how the Forgotten Alliance deals with brats. I bid you adieu. Kana is then incapacitated for a bit, while monster enemies range from Moth Dukes to Moguls to Risen surround the children. Shigore volunteers to keep Kana out of harm's distance, leaving the rest of the children to defend themselves for a total 20 turns. Once the map is finished, Kana will recover but feel really weak, leaving him to lean on Shigore for support. The children as a whole feel unsure and scared about their whole situation, but Shigore rallies everyone together to stay strong and to take on this mysterious threat. As the group decides where to go next, Tsukiko feels a very sharp rise of dark magic and pain, and directs the group to go towards a specific village, one without name, but with a familiar life force. In Chapter 26, the children are following Tsukiko through a prairie. Suddenly, she stops and starts cackling, leaving many children confused, but persuading Kane and Shiro to draw their weapons against Tsukiko under suspicion that she has been consumed by whatever black magic Kana was under. This causes Tsukiko to have a much lighter laugh, leading her to explain that the magic force ahead is considerably weaker than expected. After a bit more walking, the group finds a village engulfed in flames and surrounded by monsters. as the group rushes towards the village, they make out a familiar face amongst the monsters, wielding a shiny lance and stabbing everything in sight. This woman, while definitely older than Shiro, has retained a youthful look on her face. While Siegbert goes up to make a formal introduction, Hanoka grabs his hand and takes out a drawing. This is Lady Mozu, Queen of the Meek and one of the most terrifying ladies who traveled with Korn. Although, if Inenko supposedly killed all the adults, why is she still alive? Mozu then walks up behind Hanoka and responds, "It's easy, I still look like a tack. But now I'm big and strong like the mighty ox I wrestled after learning under Rinka. Plus, you should know that big stupid dragon could never kill me off. I've worked too damn hard and too damn long on these lance skills." This is when Mozu's child, or children, will go up to her and express their joy that she's still alive. Mozu herself is a pre-promote, but like all pre-promotes, her growths are actually quite weak, with nothing surpassing 40% despite solid base stats. The reunion is put to a grinding halt when more monsters are summoned, along with an illusionary figure. Kisame slashes at the figure, but to no avail. "Greetings, children. My, you kids are adorable. My name is Candace, and I'm just here to stalk you out. Do you like the Bone Walkers?" I think they add a certain charm, if you know what I mean. Anyway, that's all. Have fun with that glory hound named Mozu. I'd kill her myself, but, you know, fires aren't good for the dress, and blood isn't good for the nails. The illusion then disappears, and Bone Walkers come in from all sides, with a Bone Walker holding a bow as the boss. In order to clear the map, the children must escape from a burning town through one of the 12 exits. This chapter is one of 8 chapters that unlocks a secret chapter towards the end of the game when specific conditions are met. In order to check the marker for chapter 26, Mozu must kill 5 or less enemies. Once the chapter is cleared, Mozu will explain to the children everything that happened during her childhood, relaying how she joined Korn and Azora after training on Mount Zajes, and took down Inenkos. Or, so she thought she did. After the final fight, Mozu moved back to her home village's land to try to fix and improve the village in memory of her long-lost mother. She succeeded and then some, and things in the village were quite prosperous. Unfortunately though, Inenkos came, and while she herself was unharmed, the damage left by him left the village inhabitable once more. After listening to her story, the group decides that they should check up on their respective homes to try to track down the Alliance and cut them down while they stand. The player has a choice to go to either Hoshido or Nor for chapter 27. If the team decides to go to Hoshido, your team will head to Fort Jinya. If the team decides to go to Nor, your team will head to Woods of the Forlorn. In chapter 27, depending on the choices you made, the group will head to either Fort Jinya or Woods of the Forlorn. Starting with Fort Jinya, the group of children are looking around for writings from Sakura, who Hanoka had known as a, quote, very careful note-taker, a habit she picked up from talking to Leo. While looking around in the fort, the real Candace appears and fires an arrow at Hanoka, but barely misses. She then sighs, remarking how she should have, quote, brought backup, before stating, "Oh yeah, right. All I need to do is snap if that necromancer will get me guards." Right after she snaps, a withered man appears and waves his staff, raising all sorts of bone walkers, risen, and, much to Hanoka's disbelief, the corpses of both her parents before vanishing. Hanoka goes into a tirade and grabs the nearest scroll around her, which happens to be a Calamity Gate scroll, and arms herself for combat, yelling at everyone to do the same. Shocked with how furious Hanoka is, everyone arms themselves immediately, save for Kana, who was still a little fuzzy after chapter 26. In order to clear the map, the team must rout the enemy. If Hanoka fights Candace, The following exchange will occur. These lines start with Candace talking. Oh, you wish to find Candace? Prepare yourself, love.
I will not hear a damn thing out of your mouth, you vile simpleton!
My, aren't you sharp? Very well. Let's see my bow do the talking. This is also another fight where you need to clear the 8 objectives. On this map, Hanoka needs to kill at least 7 enemies, including Candace. Fulfilling that requirement will set off a marker for later in the game. Following the battle and killing off Candace, reducing the alliance to 12 members, the group tries to figure out 2 things. 1, how Candace was able to find them so easily, and B, who the necromancer was. A few ideas float around in a general murmur, and after a bit of time, Forrest and Kane come to the same conclusion, but say, quote, they'll need to explore a bit more in order to confirm things. Understanding this and knowing the area, Sora and Shiro decide it'd be best to take the group to a shrine called Sunrise Shrine, dedicated to the Dawn Dragon to read up on any lore that might help them out here. If you decide to take the Woods of the Forlorn route, events will pretty much be similar, but instead of things focusing on Hanoka and her parents, the focus will be placed squarely on Kane and his parents. Kane will still need to kill 7 enemies, Candace will still die, and the Necromancer will still appear. And it'll be Siegbert and Wynn who come to the conclusion to visit the Sunset Shrine, dedicated to the Dusk Dragon, to read up on lore. In Chapter 28, depending on the choice you made back in Chapter 26, the group will make their way to either the Sunrise Shrine or Sunset Shrine. Starting with the Sunrise Shrine, everyone will remark about how beautiful the scenery is, complete with a view of a lake and clear shot of a sky. While the majority of people are looking at the beautiful scenery, Shiro, Sora, Hanoka, and Karagi will take their time reading over all the writings at the shrine to figure out everything they can about the Dawn Dragon and Anankos. One particular writing that catches their eye reads as such. In the darkest nights, whimsy is often drowned out and the evils of a world will pour in. However, when everything is lost, that touch of artistic whimsy could be the thing needed to bring in the dawn. The 4 children look at each other very confused and decide to keep it to themselves for now. While the royals are reading up on the figure, a mysterious figure sneaks up and snatches Mozu without anyone noticing at first. Once they do realize it, they turn around and see a pack of Mothdugs, copies of Kitsune and Wolfskin, and corpses of Mozu and whoever she married. This group is headed by none other than Daniela, who, without revealing her name, says the following before the group can even speak.
Are you looking for that little farm girl? Well, too bad. You sad little worms couldn't even notice that someone who took down your biggest enemy in the first place vanished until it was far too late. And now, the Alliance is here to finish you off as well. Dukes, attack!
At this point, Kana is well prepared to take aim at the enemies and fight alongside everyone else. For this chapter, you simply need to kill Daniela with any of Mozu's children. If Mozu went unpaired, you will need to kill Daniela with either Kana or Shigure. The map as a whole is pretty barren except for the sides, with the shrine being in the center, forest being in the quote-unquote bottom, a lake being in the top of the map, and a clear field besides a few trees otherwise. Once the map is cleared, Valoria will go up to the body and see if there's anything connecting to the Necromancer or Anankos, despite the group's protests. On Daniela's body, Valoria is able to find a necklace with a particularly strong white pendant attached. This pendant seems to want the group to go in a specific direction, but Hisame and a majority of the children refuse to follow something off of sheer trust. Instead, with Valoria pocketing the pendant, the group makes their way to the lake by the shrine after some convincing from Shigure, who tells the group that this is the very lake Azora used long ago. On the Norian side of things, at the Sunset Shrine, things are much different. While there still is a lake behind the shrine, the water is quite acidic and thus not safe to properly go in. And the forest in front of the shrine is withered away and dying. The sky is dark beyond belief, and the ones reading up on the shrine are the Norian royals: Siegbert, Wynn, Forrest, and Kane. The shrine here reads, "In the brightest of skies, the dark is drowned out to bring in hope and change. Too much hope and change can be a good thing. Sometimes, when the world is at its happiest, you have to let the world burn in order to establish a true order and stability." Mozu is still dragged off and killed by Daniela, and Valoria still finds a pendant, but the pendant is black this time. The group still distrusts the pendant, and, off a gut feeling, Forrest convinces the group to head towards the acidic lake. Moving into Chapter 29, the group will be by one of the two lakes, depending on the pathway. On the Hoshiden path, you'll be by a crystal clear, expansive lake, with a very quiet surrounding. The lake is ringed by trees, and is the same lake Azora is at in the opening credits. The group is still mourning over the loss of Mozu, especially Mozu's children. Everyone is huddled into small groups, and one of these groups is composed of Shigure, Hanoka, and Sora. While chatting casually about the legacy Mozu left behind, Shigure asks what the writings were at the shrine. Sora shrugs and goes, "Oh, just some vague stuff about keeping hope. Nothing in particular." Hanoka scoffs at her and goes, there was a particular phrase for that touch of whimsy. Could be the thing needed to bring in the dawn." Shigure's ears perk up and, without a second thought, begins to sing Lost in Thoughts All Alone. While the song is pretty enough, nothing really happens at first. As he continues through the verses, his vocals rise and the waters begin to change, opening up a vortex from below. While the vortex sucks no one in, Shigure does note that his mother had told him to use this path in case of emergencies, but Shigure had thought nothing of it at the time. With a semi-clear understanding of what the shrine's message says, the group goes to retreat until the sky becomes really stormy. With nowhere to go, the group rushes into the forest, where they are greeted by a grimming Daichi, holding a spear freshly coated in blood. "Hello, everyone! My, you carry both a kitsune and a wolf skin with you? How delectable. I think I'll start with them. Turn them into a lovely hat and scarf, then deal with you meddling brats trying to get in Aninkos' way. God, he's resting, right? Don't be rude. Anyway, Maestro! Give the backup." Daichi then snaps his fingers, and the necromancer from before appears. Without a moment's hesitation, Kane fires up a fire tome while Tsukiko fires some dark magic to help whip the hood off the necromancer. These two spells reveal the necromancer's face, but the face is unrecognizable to any of the children. The necromancer cackles, mocking the children for not being obedient to the new world lord. Bouncing off the word lord, the necromancer summons up multiple copies of Mozu's corpse along with a bunch of Moguls and Wyvern Knights before vanishing once more. In order to clear the map, the team must kill off all the Mozu. Mozu will have the same stats and weapons she had right before she died, meaning she should pose quite a threat if you're ill-prepared. This is another chapter part of a group of 8 to unlock a special chapter later, this being the third one so far. In order to get the objective here, you simply need to kill all the Mozu within 20 turns. Once the map is cleared, the group decides to go to Castle Shirasaki to figure out the truth behind the pendant from before. The chapter is almost identical on the other pathway at the acidic lake, except Kane clears the water with a fire tome after remembering the writings at the shrine, with Shigure accidentally discovering the vortex, this time after casually singing to himself. This time, instead of Kane and Tsukiko revealing the unrecognizable face, it's Ophelia's fire spell and a perfectly placed shot by Nina's bow. After clearing the map, the children on the Norian path will head to Castle Krakenberg. to get to the bottom of her pendant. In Chapter 30, depending on the path, the group will make its way to either Castle Shirasagi or Castle Krakenberg to try to figure out what the pendants picked up from Daniela are for. On the Hoshido path, the group approaches the castle, with Hidaki, Hisume, Hotaru, and Mitama leading the way as they feel bad for not doing much at all. Once they throw the doors open, a thick fog emits from the building, causing everyone to run back in panic. Once the smoke settles, Kumagera appears with a very menacing look and a silver mace in his hands. Kumagera, after seemingly struggling with himself, says, "So, you're the one coming after my Lord and Savior, eh? Look, we tried to exist along you folk. Quite peacefully, too. But you just keep taking and taking and taking, and eventually killed off an Ankos. Or, at least you thought. Is that who I... Oh, get over here!" Kumagera then rushes towards Shigure with the mace in hand. But fortunately for him, Hotaru's Pegasus comes out from basically nowhere to slam Kumagera to the side, giving Tsukiko enough time to place Kumagera inside the throne room and lock the doors.
"And that's why no one messes with my friend!"
Hotaru shouts, quickly becoming ashamed of what she almost blurted.
I got carried away."
The group then gives a light chuckle, making note of what she almost said. But only one not laughing is Kane, who grabbed Shiro by the arm and dragged him to the front of everyone. Everyone, that man we saw was not the man he actually was. This long suspected as much, but unlike the rest of you, I actually hit the books. Listen up, everyone. I have a holy grail right here. Kane then holds up a journal with Korn's name written on it, clearly old and worn down. In this notebook, Kane continues, is Korn's experiences, including notes that this man that Hotaru's Pegasus just slammed into tried to assassinate my grandpa at one point. Why my Uncle Leo had it in his library is beyond me, but I digress. While most of it is just filler with raising Kana and a random sibling name here, there are specific notes here about these two pendants called the Dawn Shard and Dusk Shard. These two shards were crafted by Azora, according to this notebook, as a way to hide location in case Anankos were to ever rise again. Something, food droppings, nope, this is just useless kind of crap again. Kane then stuffs the notebook back into his robe, leaving everyone impressed. Look, Kane continued on once more. If we're going to save ourselves, we need to get inside that castle and somehow find a way to place that man's body on the throne. Win, Shiro, use those glistening abs to distract everyone. Soleil, Percy, Ophelia, Nina, I want you right behind them to dish out the pain. Everyone else, stick close to either me or Shiro. My name may not be Robin, but I am a tactician, damn it. Now, let's move. The chapter then begins. In order to clear the chapter, the group must eliminate everyone besides Kumagera. If Kumagera is killed prior to this, the Necromancer will locate the children, call Anankos to the castle, and wipe them out with everyone inside. Inside the castle, there are 3 hidden treasure rooms. In order to clear the chapter marker, for a secret chapter later in the game, this one being the 4th one overall, Hidaki must open all 3 treasure chests. Once the map is completed, Hisume and Kiragi will place Kumagera, after incapacitating him, and the pendant on the throne. While the vision is blurry, there are 2 distinct visions. The first vision is where he raised his mace towards King Garen, but was yanked away by someone who looks like the Necromancer, except while he was young. After this, the vision gets somewhat distorted and only clears up towards the end for a moment, where a black dragon glared into his eyes. From there, Kumagera's vision is completely red, distorted, and unwatchable, much like any footage from the Virtual Boy. Kumagera then snaps to it and tries attacking Shigure again, but this time Percy comes from behind and slams his own axe into Kumagera's back.
"Does this mean I'm finally a hero?"
Percy quips after Kumagera falls to the ground. A death untimely, for one without his own mind, but safety is ours. Mitama writes out loud, while Ignatius drags the body away as to make any conversation less awkward. With all the secrets of Bushido being taken care of, the group decides to make their way towards Nor, and thanks to the lake, Shigure is able to lead the group straight to Vala with some swimming. In Castle Krakenberg, the exact same events occur except for one minor change. Kumagera aims for Kana instead of Shigure. Kumagera is still not himself, Ignatius still drags the body off, Percy still lands a final blow, Kane still has Corrin's notebook, and the group also heads to Vala. In Chapter 31, the group makes their way to Vala once more to find everything has changed drastically, with Kana's and Shigure's homes no longer standing and much of the land being scorched. The group decides it'd be best to avoid being out in plain sight. So from the lake they just transported through, the group makes its way through a nearby forest, which Kana and Shigure knows has a second lake on the other side of it. Though things are going fine for a bit, the two stumble upon Lloyd and Lewin, having a major argument while Anankos flies away. While the group cannot make anything out, the two twins shout louder and louder. Then, almost out of necessity, Lloyd takes his axe and slams it straight through Lewin's neck, killing him instantly. While Lloyd is obviously very upset with what he just did, Anankos returns and, with the Necromancer's help, casts a spell on Lloyd to make him the size of a giant, with weaponry to match. Anankos and the Necromancer then teleport away, and the group decides to make a dash for the lake, knowing they were nowhere near capable of taking on such a big enemy right now. To clear the chapter, the children must escape in one piece while dealing with some of the enemies in the forest, which include miniature gargoyles, ogres, moth-doogs, and a lone Gorgon with 3 Gorgon eggs. This chapter also includes the 5th marker out of 8. This marker is easily the easiest to obtain, as the requirement is that Shigure must be the first one to escape, as he needs to open up the lake to necessitate escape for everyone else. While the normal enemies will have their normal range, Lloyd will be able to move 5 spaces and has a range of 5, with very poor accuracy, but enough power to even one-shot Effie with capped HP through Pavice. Once the last child escapes, the chapter will end. As an aside, I personally like this chapter because it combines 2 very different tales in a way that makes sense. Wagner's rain cycle, and the part in Jack and the Beanstalk, where Jack is trying to escape from a giant. After this chapter ends, the children will go to either Fort Ginia or Woods of the Forlorn, depending on which pathway the children took the first time. Chapters 32, 33, 34, and 35 will be nearly mirrored versions of chapters 27, 28, 29, and 30, albeit with some minor differences. In Chapter 32, which is a mirror of Candace's chapter in either Fort Ginia or Woods of the Forlorn, instead of trying to figure out who the Necromancer is, Siegbert and Shiro will sit there frustrated trying to remember where they know him from before all this. You will still need to kill 7 enemies with either Hanoka or Kane, including Candace's replacement for the mirror, Zara. Doing so will be the 6th chapter out of 8 you've completed, with the marker for a later chapter to be unlocked. Zara will have the following dialogue with Hanoka. So, you're here for what purpose? What reason? True warriors stick to code.
You are not about to use rhetoric on me like that when you just summoned my dead mother and father!
I never said I was a true hero. You want to be brave? Match your might with mine, and we'll see who still stands. In Chapter 33, which is a mirror of the Shrine chapters, Mozu will not die for a second time over. Instead, Candace will summon multiple corpses of Azama, complete with healing capabilities. The pendant you find in this chapter, being either the black or white pendant based on one you've already found, will be important in the endgame instead of 2 chapters down the line. The boss that takes over for this chapter is Funk. In Chapter 34, which is a mirror chapter of Lake chapters, the children will compare the readings of the shrines, coming to the conclusion that a balance of both good and bad is necessary for the world to exist, but one must not overdo the other. Shigure will not sing Lost in Thoughts All Alone for this chapter. This time, Hotaru instructs her Pegasus to slam into the side of a necromancer upon sight, and while successful, the group is only able to catch his eye before he makes his summons and vanishes. Seno takes over for Daichi in this chapter. This time, instead of summoning Mozu, the necromancer will summon copies of Mozu's husband, or, if Mozu went unmarried, Korin. If you kill all of the husbandos or Korin within 20 turns, you'll clear the 7th marker out of 8. Finally, in Chapter 35, which is a mirror chapter of the castle chapters, Tarba will take over for Kumagera, and out of fear of her Pegasus being hurt if she slams the Pegasus into another person at high speed, Hotaru gets Kana to ask Shigure to ask Ophelia and Forest to knock Tarba back at high speeds with their magic, before Tsukiko warps Tarba into the throne room. As the children all know about Kane's book, the rallying cry this time is instead headed by Kana, who instructs the group to take caution while also giving it everything they've got. The vision Tarba has will be nearly identical to Kumagera's, but instead of having a vision about almost killing King Garen, he'll have a vision of tearing through a castle, slaughtering the figurehead inside and taking a mountain of wealth with him. Percy still slams his axe into him from behind. Yay! Once Chapter 35 is completed, the group will head to either Fort Dragonfall or the Wind Tribe Village after Tsukiko and Nyx's child, or Forest if Nyx is unmarried, and Kana if Nyx married the Avatar, begin receiving telepathic messages from someone who sounds like either Nyx or Hayato, depending on the current pathway. In Chapter 36, the group will make their way towards either Fort Dragonfall or the Wind Tribe Village, based on whether the group was in Castle Shirasagi or Krakenberg in Chapter 35. Tsukiko is nervous about meeting her father again, but knows the stakes, while Nyx's child, should she have one, is very amped to see their mother once more. However, something is clearly amiss, because as they approach the Fort Dragonfall or the Wind Tribe Village, a puff of purple smoke emits in the distance, followed by a massive amount of storms. Instead of hanging back, the children race towards the storm, and with a couple dodges of lightning, the kids make their way either into the fort or into the tribe. Starting with the Hoshin path once more, in the Wind Tribe Village, the lightning strikes have set plenty on fire, and many of the homes have already collapsed. Racing their way out of their home is Hayato, casting wind spell after wind spell in a bit of a panic, with Fuga not being around to guide him. Tsukiko and Hayato have an icy reunion, but after Hisame reminds the two what they're in the middle of, they stop with the simple petty blows and focus on figuring out what's causing the storm. As you can expect, the group comes up with nothing at first because, you know, it's a goddamn storm. They're not exactly known for being caused by humans, magical or otherwise, and the team isn't exactly filled with weathermen. As the group goes to seek shelter, the necromancer appears, staff in hand, ready to summon more beasts. And summoning beasts, he succeeds in. While deathgoyles, phantoms, harpies, and guili are running amok in the village, and harpies also making their first appearance in a mainstream Fire Emblem game, the main force are a squad of 5 Fuga corpses, summoned to fight the children. "I'll key you in on this," says the necromancer. "You want to know how I keep summoning these dead fools? Think of Ankos. His dark magic knows no end, even when it comes to the dead. Now, why don't you run along and go home, children? I'm sure Mommy's waiting for you." "Oh, that's it!" shouts Karaki, and despite missing the necromancer's body, he is able to shoot off the robe clean, revealing the necromancer to be none other than Iago, who doesn't seem to have aged a day since Arc 1. Nicely done. Now, I must make my way back to Anankos. Goodbye, you foolish mortals. Iago quips before vanishing, leaving the group with the monsters and corpses of Fuga. In order to clear the map, the group simply needs to escape through one of 4 paths. However, players may wish to stick around, as this chapter holds the 8th and final chapter requirement for the secret chapter later in the game. To clear this task, the player needs to let Hayato kill 3 of the Fuga corpses. If a player does that and clears the map, the 8th and final lock will be unleashed. The bonus chapter isn't immediate though, but in due time it will come. Over in Fort Dragonfall, similar events happen, except instead of a purple storm, flashes of lightning are being flung through the fort and are summoning monsters that are completely surrounding Nyx, including Archmogols, Gorgons, and Cyclops. Iago is still revealed, and instead of summoning 5 corpses of Fuga, he will summon 5 corpses of whoever Nyx married or Scarlet. Nyx will still need to kill 3 of the corpses. Once the chapter is cleared, on both ends, either Nyx or Hayato will tell the group about Notre Sagesse, and the power it can grant for those that clear it. While skeptical about it working as the Rainbow Sage died 20 years ago, the adults persuade the children to travel to Notre Sagesse. In Chapter 37, the group makes their way to Notre Sagesse. Despite the tales Nyx and Hayato told along the way about how the town was plundered by pirates and destroyed by a monsoon, the town still seems to be in perfectly good shape. As the group wanders around for a bit, they stumble upon an old man doing some pottery work. Wynn asks the old man what he's doing, and the old man quips in response, "Isn't it obvious, boy? I'm making a special pot." Pressing further into the matter, Wynn is promptly struck upside the head by the old man's cane. Realizing his brother's absolutely useless in this, Siegbert speaks up and asks about the legends of the Sevenfold Sanctuary. The man strokes his beard and tells the children that on the summit is a gauntlet with many challenges and heartache, and if they wish to climb it, they need absolute willpower. If they do clear it, they will definitely be strong, but by how much is unknown. After Kana and Shigure trade knowing glances with either Hayato or Nyx, depending on routes, the children decide to trek up the mountain. Just like Chapter 17, the enemies on this map will be mirrored versions of your own units. As such, you will need to handle the chapter carefully, but with smooth planning, it should be a breeze. To make matters a little trickier though, Iago trailed the group and is setting the place on fire. 1 row and 1 column at a time. His order goes bottom room, bottom left room, bottom right room, top left room, top right room, top middle room, and peak room, with rows and columns that have staircase being taken out last. While the prospect of Iago taking out tiles is a scary one, he does it in such a slow way that at most it should only be a mild annoyance. The bosses of this map are mirrored versions of Kana and Shigure, so make sure your bows and lances are at the ready. Upon clearing the chapter, the Rainbow Sage will appear and bless the sacred weapons held by Siegbert, Wynn, Forrest, Kane, Shiro, Sora, Kuragi, and Hanoka, and afterwards grant Kana access to the Omega Yado for his hard work. Nyx or Hayato immediately demand answers as to how he's still alive, to which he simply answers, "How can something die if they're immortal? Things do not simply just die or just live. Life and matter is in a constant state of flux. You just need to be one step ahead of the curve." Still unsatisfied, the Rainbow Sage leaves the group alone and takes off. At this point, there is a bit of a break in path again. If you did not clear all 8 markers, you will immediately proceed to Chapter 38 and head straight to Vala. If you did clear all 8 markers, you'll head to Chapter 37X, which is preceded in Chapter 37 by Selkie smelling an odor that just didn't fit, and digging into the tapestry in the back of the final room, revealing a secret passageway. In Chapter 37X, the group is transported to a secret room in the Sevenfold Sanctuary, big enough to house an entire army, but rather vacant. In the center of the room, floating above a raised platform, is a lance and sparkling light. Without a moment's thought, Hidaki and Hisame rush towards the lance at once, but cause it to vanish and the passageway behind them to shut. Ignatius shouts, "You two can't even use that thing, and now it's gone, and now we're trapped, and now it's dark, and the building is on fire, and we're gonna die because you two are idiots who haven't done anything this entire journey!" This causes the three to get into a major argument, obviously, with Percy, Shiro, Forrest, Kane, Siegbert, and Selkie getting involved with everyone else sitting in the back, trying to believe what they are witnessing. After a few moments, Mitama gets pissed off and shouts, "Enough! You know how hard it is for a girl to nap when her idiot friends are shouting because of an easily fixable problem? Ophelia, please light the room." Ophelia then creates a ball of fire with the help of her tome, only to realize they were not alone. In the room was a bunch of faceless, about 50 in total. The battle then starts, with the objective being rout the enemy. This chapter is a fog of war chapter, with no way to illuminate the area past what you can see. On the bright side, get it, bright side when there's no torch mechanic, the area is rather open, with stalagmites shooting up all over the place, but these are easily breakable. This chapter has its own little marker for a different special chapter. Should you get Shigure to the podium and have him interact with it, the lance will return. This lance is called Piacere, stylized in the form of an eighth note and a shimmering blue in color. This lance grants Shigure +3 in all of his stats and has a built-in rally spectrum effect built into it, as well as being able to do 3/4 damage to enemies with dragon skin instead of 1/2. This lance also has the same might as the Omega Yato, clocking in at 16 might. By the lance will be a note from Azora, reading, "Dear Rainbow Sage, please keep this safe. If my son needs it, he'll know where to go. It may not be your craft, but it is Moro's. And even though you fought with him, I know you'd keep it safe. Shigure, if you're reading this instead, protect your friends. Both Kadros and I are counting on you." If you can get Shigure to this podium within 8 turns, you'll unlock a chapter later in the game. Once the faceless are gone, the lights come back on and a tapestry in the back room blows open, revealing a portal that takes them to the same area they would have reached while traveling on foot. In Chapter 38, despite whether or not you played Chapter 37X, the group will find themselves at first on a very tiny floating island. After waiting for things to float around and perspective to change, the group makes its way onto Vala's mainland, right outside the forest they were in Chapter 31. Forrest and Wynn speculate that they'll need to make their way to the castle like they did in Hoshido and Nora in order to find Anankos, and thus begin walking towards there. Hisame, being the bored little entitled turd that he is, decides to split from the group and explore the environment. Not even 30 seconds later, Hisame is screaming and terrified, having stumbled upon the new giant Lloyd just waking up. Out of panic, Hisame takes the sword and sticks it into Lloyd's hand, which clearly pisses Lloyd off and sends him into a rampage. Lloyd is beyond comprehension at this point, only having grunts and growls left, a far cry from the sweet person he once was. Tsukiko and Kane try to subdue him, but it's of no use. With deathgoyles, gargoyles, and archmogols floating throughout the forest, the team needs to survive for as long as humanly possible. In order to clear the chapter, the team must kill Lloyd. Lloyd is set up much like Anankos in that there's various body parts they must defeat. There are 5 total pieces for the team to destroy. His 2 legs and his 2 arms set up in a bit of a push-up position, followed by his head. The enemies on the map are constantly respawning for each one you take out, meaning you need to be on agile offense as well as pretty solid defense. Lloyd's accuracy will vary depending on how far away you are from hitting him, but his giant fist and giant foot both have poor accuracy from 2 range as opposed to 1. His head is where things don't matter in terms of accuracy, as headbutt and bite, headbutt being for 1 space away and bite for 2, will hit all about the same time. All attacks have high power, but not enough to one-shot you. If you manage to clear the map, you will kill off Lloyd and ensure safety. Mitama will begin to wonder what was really the price of this massive war, while Percy begins to fear for the lives of his friends, his dragon ace, and lastly himself. Sora and Win try to assure everyone that things will be fine because they're the, quote, best damn army the world's ever seen. And when that doesn't work, Shiro and Kane rally the group to give it their all so that they can honor their parents and stay safe. Kane clearly flustered when Shiro pulls Kane in from the side. With spirits revitalized, the children head towards the destination of their final battle. But first, they must make it through Chapter 39. In Chapter 39, the group makes it quite further than the forest, getting about 3/4 of the way to the castle. While everyone is struggling, everyone is staying motivated to keep pressing forward. As for walking, Midori, who yes, has been here the whole time, suddenly stops the group to look for the herbs, causing Sophie and Dwyer to almost fall over the edge of the floating island they're on. Midori notes that the herb doesn't feel natural whatsoever, almost like sand. Wynn gets annoyed because he just wants to go, as he puts it, quote, knock that big nasty dragon's lights out, but Midori scolds him and urges that it's important. Sure enough, as the group makes their way towards the next island, a Draco zombie swoops through the area, nearly taking Sophie and Dwyer with it. On top of this Draco zombie is Iago, smile wide and cackling loud. Oh, isn't this just rich? You guys actually killed that stupid giants. Fine. Let's see you take on some dragons. I'd love to stay in chat, but I have your deaths to prepare for, you traitors of fate. Iago sneers as he teleports away, leaving the group with a giant Draco zombie to take down alongside a bunch of Death Goyles and Archmogols. The map is the same map from Chapter 20 of the original Fire Emblem Revelations, Seeds of Trust. To clear the map, the team simply needs to kill the Draco zombie. The Death Goyles and Archmogols, who respawn every 3 turns, will be in large quantities, placing the pressure on to go far but also be safe. If you kill the dragon with anyone besides Kana, the Draco zombie will fall, revert to Corrin for a second, then vanish, causing Kana to burst into tears and fly into a fit. Hisame will try to calm them down, but Kana will shove Hisame unknowingly off the island. Sora will swoop down and catch Hisame at the last second, and after realization that they almost killed a friend, Kana starts to relax, getting really apologetic, and starts to focus on the task at hand. If you kill the Draco zombie with Kana, the Draco zombie will fall and revert to Corrin for a much longer time. Kana will still be bawling, but Corrin will pull them in for a hug and utter the following words. Look, Kana, I'm gone. I'm here, but I'm gone. And I truly apologize for leaving you when I did. At the same time, you need to capitalize on what I did. In that moment, to keep you and your siblings safe, I had to sacrifice myself. Would I have liked to? No. If I could have, I would have run. But no man is perfect. Sometimes you're too gullible, too love-struck, too weak. But you can also be too distrusting, too hardened, too isolated. I think you found that perfect balance, and that's all you need in this life to succeed. Be strong and bring the justice this world deserves. Lord knows I couldn't be. Corn will then evaporate and pass on, leaving Kana in tears, but at the same time, leaving them with a pure sense of determination. Sophie helps them up and points out that they're all behind Kana, as forward or laid back as they all may be. She then points towards the castle and says, "If it weren't for you, my boat would be all the way 6 feet under. And now we're basically 6 feet away. Now, dust off that magical Yato and let's move. Evil's behind you, so is Ace, and so is everyone else." With a simple nod, Kana takes off running towards the castle, with everyone else following closely behind. The time has finally come for Chapter 40. We're almost there! Woo! In the final chapter, the group makes their way to Castle Gygus. Victory is finally within grasp. They just need to go inside and slay the dragon. Nerves are high, but with sage words from either Nyx or Hayato, depending on your decisions, the group stays level-headed. Right as they reach the courtyard, a massive storm begins to brew. Everyone runs for cover, which is only met by cackling. Fine, you killed the dragon. That doesn't matter. I was promised ultimate power by Nankos himself. And what were you promised? Safety? False safety? Newsflash, kids, the world is a scary place. Get used to it. Iago sneers through the clouds. This angers Nyx or Hayato, who fling a spell right at Iago. The spell lands and causes the storm to pass. Iago flails around for a bit, and Siegbert is at the point where he wants to fling his lance right into him. This flailing was a bit of an act, though, as he quickly stands up, teleports himself to a safer distance, and snaps. A puff of smoke appears around Nyx or Hayato, removing them entirely. Oh dearie, did your guide just die? A guide I whipped up just to bring you here? Bringing dead souls alive, controlling them. It's pretty nifty. And that's not all I can do. Watch this! On this very large battlefield, complete with 5 castles, with the 5th being Gygus, Valite soldiers of all kinds pour out of all of the doors, being joined by revived versions of Luane, Candace, Zahara, Daniela, Seno, Daichi, Tarba, Kumagara, and Funk. The captains of these 3 castles are the 3 surviving Alliance members, Nicole, Hidaka, and Gazak. The 4th smaller castle is headed by Iago, with generic enemies serving as his allies. The 5th castle, Gygus itself, seems to be completely empty, until an old man trots out horseback. He takes a deep sigh before rushing straight at Kana. Kana ducks the axe just in time, but recognizes the man. That's Gunter! Mama / Papa said he died ages ago! Kana half shouts out of pure shock. Gunter smirks and prepares his horse to rush back. Look, I don't want to be known as someone who murdered a kid. Instead, I'll let my lackeys handle it. But trust me, if you're not taken out by my forbidden alliance, I will take you out myself. Gunter then rides back to Gygus. A bunch of Valite soldiers pour out and the chapter begins. In order to clear this chapter, which requires you to use every child you have, you must seize all 5 castles. For those who know Genealogy of the Holy War, this is where the parallels turn into a literal reference. The castles are spread in a weird format to fit the odd terrain, with plenty of trees and cliffs blocking otherwise easy paths. To the left will be castles headed by Gazak and Iago. The right will have a castle headed by Nicole. The middle of the map will have a castle headed by Heitaka, and the castle in back right will be headed by Gunter. Gazak and Iago will always support each other with troops, while Nicole and Heitaka have each other's backs. As for when you go to attack Gunter, a bunch of deaf goyles and wyvern lords will appear to try to stop you in your tracks. All 5 of these people will speak about what Inankos promised them while half-heartedly begging for their old life back as they draw their final breaths. Iago, being the sniveling, cowering fool he is, wants nothing more than to serve with King Garen once more. Nicole wants to rejoin his own gang of bandits who were, quote, second to none. Eitaka wants nothing more than to see Queen Makoto's smiling face once more. Gazak wants nothing but the power and gold he was promised, but wants to apologize to, quote, the tiny Norian girl, who, by the way, is Forrest. Gunter wants nothing more than to reunite with his family. If Kana lands the final blow on Gunter, Gunter will also talk about how he wants to congratulate Korin for, quote, raising such a wonderful child. Once all 5 of the castles are seized, the chapter is cleared, and the children get ready for the final fight. With nerves jittering and hearts pumping, they slowly push open the doors of Castle Gygas. As the doors swing into the building and start the second endgame, the children are treated to a rather different experience. Instead of Inankos immediately coming in and cackling and taunting, the children are treated to a dusty inside and the faint sound of dripping water. The group walks in slowly, with everyone being very confused and very uneasy. After a couple minutes of walking around in the silence, Hisame wonders aloud, so, did we come here for nothing, or... As if on cue, Inankos tears through the ground, almost killing all the children in the process. Hisame in particular was almost taken out, being grazed by one of the wains, and since Inankos is traveling so fast, he ends up pushing Hisame with enough force to shove him into both Dwyer and Midori and keep flying backward. After fully coming out of the ground, he takes the roof off the building and sends the group to the same spatial area as before. This time, Inankos is not fucking around and takes aim directly at Kana and Shigure with a deadly attack. Right as Inankos fires, Hisame and Ignatius shove the two out of the way, taking the hit for themselves and sacrificing themselves in the process. Such simpletons. You know, I could just fire that over and over again, right? Of course I need charge time, but... Shut up, Inankos! You killed our families! Sophie shouts as Inankos was trying to be coy. It seems the little writer is upset that I killed her father. What was his name? Stalis? Cephas? It was Silas! Ah, well, he was a waste of time anyway. Just as you're a waste of space and the grand design of things. Why you... Sophie almost goes to attack, but fears for losing her life too, so she stays put. Kana, still trying to process Hisame's and Ignatius's deaths, stares Inankos dead in the eye and goes, You know, it's not nice to pick on the small, but if that's your idea of fun, then let's play. Inankos retorts, Please. By the time this is done, you're going to be a play toy for Iago's soul. But sure, let's go. Before the battle begins, the legendary weapons begin to react to each other, each powering up and giving Kana a boosted Omega Yado, bringing it up to 18 might. The chapter then begins with the same design as last time we were here. To reiterate from all of that time ago, you're only able to bring the 10 royal characters with you to the endgame, which in this case consists of Shiro, Sora, Kuragi, Hanoka, Kana, Shigure, Siegbert, Win, Forrest, and Kane. Every 3 turns, 8 copies of one of your allies, including the newly deceased Hisame and Ignatius, will be spawned onto the battlefield to keep you on your toes. Like the original boss battle in your battle against Lloyd, you will need to take down multiple body segments. First, you have the arms, which now have 60 HP. Following that is the head, which now has 80 HP. Finally, there's the eye, with 100 HP. After all of these forms are defeated, Anankos will fall and be sealed away once more with nothing surviving to revive him. The children will go home, celebrate, destroy Castle Gygas, and lead overbearing people with newfound strength and courage to do anything they set their mind to. The credits will then play along with the end stories and a final cutscene where Kana finishes writing in his notebook, walks out to Azora's Lake, then tosses a couple stones before Shigure joins him, sharing sentiments that things haven't gone as they've planned, but they know that they've made their parents and future children proud. Or, at least that would be what happens if that was the true ending of a game. Do you remember Chapter 37X and how I had a little marker for a later chapter? Well, ladies and gentlemen, for the first time in forever, welcome to the secret endgame! In this super special awesome secret endgame, instead of a cutscene that plays where Anankos is sealed away, the model animation will continue, with Anankos' human form reappearing from Chapter 20, kneeled down and grabbing at his chest. Kana places the Omega Yado next to Anankos' head and says in a very plain voice, "Tell me why I shouldn't strike right now." Anankos smirks and taunts Kana, calling him a gullible fool who had a gullible mother, or father depending on the gender of Korn, who had almost just as little wit and courage as their mother/father. Kana goes to swing, but Shigure blocks it with a piacere, reminding Kana that violence is not the answer. So, the trio of characters continue to converse more, with things going somewhat swimmingly on the surface. During the conversation, though, Anankos grabs a tome, causing Nina and Karaki to fire arrows at almost the same moment. The two arrows collide, causing the shots to miss. What the arrows do hit is Anankos' robe, tearing the hood clean off and revealing Anankos' true identity. "What? But you're the illustrious..." Ophelia starts, before trailing off. "Robin? I've been called that a number of times. Man, it's been a while though, a solid 40 years at least." "But you're on the side of justice. Why are you attacking us? Why did you kill our parents?" Percy shouts, demanding answers. "Settle down, children," Robin retorts. "First off, I'm not your Robin. The Robin you're thinking of is from your timeline, where on a different continent, Robin joined the Shepherds and slayed Grima. But me, well, that Robin no longer exists. You're lucky you caught me when I'm feeling slightly calm. In my timeline, I joined Grima and took over as the new power. I slaughtered Crom, Lissa, and his whole posse. Man, their souls tasted good. That brat Lucina tried stopping me, and I almost got her too. That stupid Naga goddess banished me here, to this very space mountain we're on now. But we're on a singular slab?" Mitama questions. "Are we though?" Robin snaps and the ground shifts to a mountain layout, with much more space between them, but able to hear all the same. For a while, I was bitter. I heard this one song about the ocean's gray waves that calmed me down, but that song is long dead to me. After I killed Kadros, the necessary verse vanished, and now you have me. So, are we okay to leave? Sophie ponders. Oh yeah, that reminds me. I have some children to slaughter blood-free. Robin snaps again, and this time a whole lot more evaporation happens. In an instant, Dwyer, Sophie, Midori, Hidaki, Selkie, Mitama, Hotaru, Tsukiko, Valoria, Percy, Ophelia, Soleil, and Nina all evaporate, their screams filling the air before being gone forever. Except, of course, it's the endgame. It's not gonna get saved, so shh. Shiro takes a strong hold of the Raijinto, screaming, "Why would you do that?" Robin giggles and responds, "Way too many accessories. Also, you might want to calm down on that sword, buddy. It's the only reason why you're alive." I was able to weaken it a little bit with your father, but now I can't harm it in this stupid form. Besides, you wouldn't want to act like that in front of your family, would you? Robin snaps a third time, and a bunch of reanimated bodies appear. These reanimated bodies are the adults of Arc 1, complete with their weapons and levels. If weapons were removed or simply aren't present for a fluent weapon, the highest powered weapon corresponding to their weapon level will appear in their inventory. After reading the initial shock of the face of all the children, Robin cackles, then gets serious. Look, I don't want to kill you, Ten. You all have potential beyond your comprehension. So, I offer this. Join me as the new Forbidden Alliance, and I'll make all your wildest dreams come true. What do you say? Siegbert and Wynne, being the idiots they are, seem completely in at first as the children discuss. But Shiro and Kane bring up a very valid point in that these same kind of promises were made to Iago, to Gunter, to Luane and Lloyd, and the rest of the original alliance. They slowly lost their minds for supposed power, but it was all for naught. Kane explains. Forced ponders whether or not they should fake acceptance, an idea that Sora and Hanoka shoot down right away. Giving in to him would mean losing our weapons, Azar, Hanoka explains, and the group nods in unison. We just need to kill zombie forms of our parents and our friends, then kill them. We can do that, right? Shigure asks in a rally cry sort of appeal, and the group nods. With a glowing piacere, Shigure shouts, "Listen up, you filth from another world! You may have gotten rid of my friends, but we will not bow down to you no matter how great your performance is. Prepare for an encore, everyone!" Robin shrugs in response. You know, I thought I was a decent actor. Trying to be human and everything. Looks like I just need a couple more classes with Mr. Psychowitz. For the record, Kana, I enjoyed every last bite of my old friends and your mother/father. I'm ready for dessert. Right after this line, the piacere lights up, becoming the beta piacere, which takes the shape of a treble clef. While the stats stay mostly the same, aside from boosting the +3 to a +4 for all the stats, the beta piacere comes with a built-in encore mechanic. If any nearby ally has used for turn already and is standing right next to Shigure when he attacks using this weapon, the nearby ally or allies will be able to move again. If you remember back to Genealogy of the Holy War, there is a dancer by the name of Sylvia. It basically works like that. The endgame then begins, with the goal being to kill Robin. The chapter itself has a sloping mountainside effect, meaning there's no real way to avoid enemies. The enemies are clustered in groups of 6 on the mountain in reverse order of how you recruited them during Arc 1, meaning characters such as Mozu and Shora will be encountered first. Once you reach the top, you'll notice that Robin has an unknown amount of HP. This HP total is 160, and he has Dragon Skin to boot. This time, Robin is in his signature Grand Master class, meaning he's able to use both swords and magic like a Dark Knight. In Robin's inventory is the Levin Sword, Thoron, Dragon Spirit, Excalibur, and Nosferatu. This Robin has Shadow Gift to necessitate Nosferatu. All 10 children will share unique pieces of dialogue with their respective parents, each highlighting the strengths and bravery of each child. Once the children reach the top of the mountain, they'll fight against Robin, who again cackles at how gullible these children are and toys at how he was 3 steps ahead from the get-go. Once the player gets within 5 spaces of him, Robin will summon reanimated versions of Corrin, Azora, Xander, Camilla, Leo, Elise, Ryoma, Hinoka, Takumi, and Sakura. Enough to where every turn they will start with all 10 clones on the field as to distract the player. Once the player is able to cut down Robin, he utters a small thank you for releasing me before fading away. With that, the game truly ends, with the 10 royal children returning to their respective kingdoms in a very solemn state. Siegbert takes over as the King of Nor, Shiro as the King of Hoshido, and Shigure as the King of Vala. In their respective kingdoms, they all utter the following words at their coronations. No matter how separated we stand, we will all be together, always. No matter what the odds are, all 10 of us will not fall to any danger that faces us. This is my pledge to you, my brethren. And should we fall, let it be with honor. The credits then roll, endgames included. The game then properly ends, with the 2 pendants from earlier falling onto a free orchid, revealing the symbol for the Grimleal. And with that, that is my rewrite of Fire Emblem Revelations. This is something new and different for me, but I couldn't be happier with it at all. I got to do something in my own vision, and all things considered, I'd buy this version if I've heard about it. A huge thanks goes out to my artists for this video, all of whom are on the Fire Emblem Amino. Luna, Christian the Magician, Castor, Angel of Fate, Defense Boat, Mizu, Ender Warlock, Katria Yoon, JT Smithy, Take Me to Shershay, Meme Maestro, Little Liberator Aria, and KK Game Girl. All 13 of you are amazing people who produced amazing work, and it was a blast working with all of you, and I hope to work with you again on my next massive project. Links to all of their Amino profiles are down in the description, so be sure to give them a look. Special thanks goes to Defog Gap, who not only helped me put together this group of artists, but also wrote a whole bunch of support conversations you guys will see soon between characters you already know. I'll also be adding some support conversations to the mix, with the new characters interacting with new and old, so keep an eye out for that. I hope you guys, including my audience, were patient enough during this entire process, and I'm sorry it took nearly so long as it did. But it's here, and I'm happy I was able to share it with you guys. If you wish to see another Fire Emblem video of mine, click on the box on the end card where I talk about my top 10 Fire Emblem Fates children. In the top left, to see my collaboration with Blazing Knight from eons ago for his 1500 sub special, where we talked about the top 10 overrated Fire Emblem Fates characters, click on the box in the top right. Finally, to see my upcoming schedule, click the box on the bottom. It's unlisted, meaning you'll only be able to access it by watching this very video. Finally, to see whatever I had cooking up at the time of posting this, I'm recording this all the way back on January 14th, so I don't know what I'm doing if this whole part is going up. Click on the box in the bottom right. Anyway, that is all for now. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. Until next time, this is Joeypals, signing out.